Howdy, ladies and gentlemen. Michael here again from Guitargate, and I just had the privilege of hanging out with Rick Beato and Rex Shaw down in Atlanta, and I just got home, and we did a video about the issues with the shows like American Idol and The Voice. And if you want to watch that video, just go to Rick's channel, or actually, I'll post a link in this after it's done. But if you want to watch it, it's go to Rick's channel and you'll find it right there. But what I wanted to jump on here today and talk about is something that came up during that discussion. And that is that if you look at opportunities like American Idol, like The Voice, like going to a music school, like GIT, like I did, if you look at that and every part of that as a learning process, as something that will make you better, even though it's not perfect, it might be incredibly difficult. Um, it might not lead to more work or more jobs or anything like that. But if you look at it like that, in that mindset, in that frame of mind, you can grow immensely. And even more to the point, if you go through life that way, not expecting something to be the be all, the end all, this is going to lead to this is going to lead to this, whatever. If you just embrace the fact that everything that you do, wherever you are, everything that got you to this point makes you who you are, but then wherever this point is the beginning for what this spot is going to be. You know, your lifespan might be this big and you might think you're here, but as far as your career span, your personal development span, who you are as a player, as a person, as a parent, as a friend, a spouse, whatever it is, it's not it doesn't always do that. It does this, right? It does all kinds of crazy stuff. So, I wanted to come and share my experience of going through GIT because I think it'll be helpful. Because GIT was very hard for me, but I felt that it gave me an incredible experience. Even though ultimately the jobs that I thought I was going to get when I was there as a student, that's not what I do now, right? When people go to GIT is very much like a tech school in the sense that, unlike a conservatory, a traditional conservatory, um, or a traditional 4-year college, people spend the money to go to tech schools to learn the practical skills to get jobs that are there waiting for them on the other side. And the schools, you know, virtually their number one focus, aside from what they actually teach, is being a direct conduit between the talent and the jobs that need to be filled. So when in GIT, when you go to GIT, at least when I went, I'm assuming it's similar, but we'll get into that in a second. Um, you went, and when I started there were people that were graduating. They were a couple years ahead of me, getting auditions with major label bands. They were getting picked up, going on tour, recording, getting session work. Um, it was a direct pipeline. Yeah, sure, you had to be one of the best of the best. Not everybody got that work, but the school got you that opportunity. So if you made it in there and you worked really hard, tried to get better, picked your lane, spent the time wisely, took advantage of the opportunities that the school gave you, you could get real work. Now, the best way that I can say that GIT is different than the other schools, like a Berkeley or anything else you'd go to, and why I chose it as opposed to other ones, is one, what I just mentioned, but two, the preparation you get to nail those interviews, to do that stuff. So when you go to GIT, um, you have to do, again, I haven't been there in 10, 12 years, so, but I'm assuming it's the same because this stuff worked. You have to do, in addition to your regular curriculum in your regular private lessons, which there's a whole thing. You have theory, you have ear training, you have single string, you have rhythm guitar, you have electives. It's a whole thing. And this is also true whether you're in the drum program, the bass program, the production program, whatever. That's your basic curriculum. But in addition to that, you have to do what's called live playing workshops. Live playing workshops, when I went there were 10 of them a week. Every single one, yeah, Raphael, great for chiming in. GIT is in Hollywood, California. So he just said that he's listening, but doesn't know what I'm talking about. Yeah. GIT is in Hollywood, California. It's basically again, they're not going to like me saying it so much, but it's basically like the biggest guitar. It's not a tech school, like it's a real school, but like this is where people go when they want to be players, session players, studio musicians. They want to tour. This is not a conservatory like Berkeley. This is West Coast, Hollywood. It is the best players in the world go there that want to go there, spend the money, and have a pipeline to get work afterwards, right? Like direct, not a conservatory. So let me get back to where I was saying what makes the curriculum unique and different. So the main thing I got, because we all teach the same stuff. It's you learn the cage system at GIT. It all starts there. But what you really get is the live playing workshops. So 10 times a week when I was there was one of these live playing workshops, which you signed up for. And there were a minimum you had to do to graduate. Most people did a few a week. Some people did all 10 who were crazy, but it's very hard to do because each one is a different genre. So you'd have a metal one, you'd have a funk one, you'd have a reggae one, you'd have a jazz one, you'd have whatever. There were 10 different ones, a blues one, a country one. And you would sign up. So Wednesday at 11 o'clock is the metal LPW. And this is before YouTube and everything. This when they had a library and you could listen to the music on CD, or they would have DVDs sometimes of the live performances, but they'd give you the charts. They'd give you the charts. A lot of them were handwritten by the instructors. And so let's say it's Raining Blood by Slayer, and they would legit do Slayer, for the metal LPW, right? And then like 2 hours later, it'd be Blue Bossa on the jazz LPW. It was wild stuff. That's why it's very hard to do all 10 each week. But what I'm saying is, so you have 1 week to learn the songs. You get the charts, and then you go on the main auditorium in the main stage. And in between each of your classes, all of your peers go and sit and watch everybody else in between, doing their LPWs, right? Their live playing workshops. So someone from guitar signs up, or two guitars, if there's two guitars in that tune they picked. Bass, keys, someone from the vocal program, someone from the drum program, the people doing production, the lights, the sound production people doing the audio recording and live streaming. Everybody's learning all of this together. And once a week per genre. So 10 times a week, it might be more now. I don't know how they do it, but I'm sure it's the same. You're playing with people you've never played with before, songs that you had to learn, with charts and by ear. There's no YouTube. There's no someone showing you. You have an hour lesson week with your instructor. So if you wanted to spend it on that, they'd probably let you. But at the same time, it just doesn't always work that way. So you get up there and, it's a full-on production. Lights, smoke, big room, Marshall stacks, monitors, just like what you're going to get when, you're out in a touring band. And like I said, you're playing with people you've never played before, songs that you have to learn. And you know what you're going to get? You're going to get a lot of really epic performances, and you're going to get a lot of complete and utter train wrecks in front of all of your peers. And this is both good and bad, but mostly good, which is kind of the point of this video. And because I view it as very similarly to what you get on these different competitions. So when you're in GIT or PIT or whatever, this goes on for 2 whole years. You don't get summers off. It's 10 weeks on, 2 weeks off. So you get what is equivalent. I'm not talking about your basic gen ed college requirements. There's all your upper ed and elective stuff. What's equivalent to your 4-year program, um, again, not counting English 101 and whatever that, everything else, in 2 years straight, 10 weeks on, 2 weeks off. And each one of those weeks, you have all your full course load, you have your private instruction, and you have 10 different live playing workshops, and each one is a different genre. When you go through that fire, when you go through that 2 years and you make it out the other side, and you've played 100 gigs with 400 different people, where you've had to learn every song with no more than a week, and you screwed up a bunch and looked like complete crap in front of all your peers and instructors, but then you've also had enough good times where you like just crushed it and you get a standing ovation and it's 11 o'clock on a Tuesday, in front of everybody that you look up to. That process really hardens you. It makes you prepared for when the school puts their name on the line and says, okay, go to Capitol Records and try this out, do an audition. And they say, okay, you're learning these 10 songs. After that 2 years, you look at the 10 songs and you know exactly how to say, okay, this is my process for learning the song. I'm going to break it down blank, 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 blank. In other words, you have a process for doing it within that time frame. And that is something that I think really, really, really makes GIT unique. Um, and the whole point I'm trying to make is that even though that's not what I do now, and we can have that conversation maybe in the next video, this video, I don't know how long I'm going to do this one. Um, that is a key differentiator between that and any other type of conservatory or music school, because it's a real practice. If you have the right mindset and you know that you're going to fail and you're going to succeed, and that this is a stepping stone, and that everything you do got you there, and then what you do there is going to get you wherever it is you go. If you have that mindset where it's okay to fail and all that, then you'll be able to go out and get any type of work you want if the work is there. So that's my 2 cents on GIT. And again, this came about because I just got back from Atlanta doing a video with Rick Beato and Rhett Shaw. And if you haven't checked out that video, go over to Rick's channel and check it out, where we talk about how, it's hard on a lot of these artists and performers. But I do genuinely feel wholeheartedly that if you embrace it and you embrace the fact that you're going to totally train wreck, you're come out on the other side by persevering through and not expecting it to lead to something in particular, but really just know that you're doing this to make yourself better. And then when it's over, you'll do whatever comes next. It's an amazing opportunity. I hope all of you that are considering going or are just curious will check it out if you're in Hollywood, because it's very, very, very cool to see. Unfortunately, I graduated in 2005 or 6ish, right? Right when YouTube and iTunes came out. When I graduated, I was fortunate enough to land an audition and get the gig for a small but getting larger band signed to Capitol Records, Detroit rock stuff. And this was in the spring, and then got an advance, got some money, and went on vacation. Kind of spent it because it wasn't a good decision. I just thought the work was going to be there when I got back. When I got back, it literally seemed like overnight, YouTube and iTunes came out and basically decimated that career path. Unless you were in a gig that was already pretty established, pretty much all the speculative A&R money was gone. Uh, when I first went to GIT, I knew dozens and dozens of people that graduated the semester I came in that went in working bands, making real money on tour, on stage, in the studio, uh, as a direct result of going there and the experience and what they went through. When I graduated, I mean, it was a couple dudes, and you're talking a difference of 3 years or so. And I don't need to go into my whole story after that, but basically, that's why I started teaching, because teaching and gigging is what musicians do. Because just one typically doesn't pay the bills when you're in a local scenario, and then fell in love with teaching and started doing it online, and it's a whole different thing. The point I'm trying to make here is that what makes GIT special, what makes it really something unique and different and valuable, is the fire that you have to go through, and not the fire that you get when you go to a conservatory and you have to put together this perfectly composed piece, um, that you and all your contemporaries and instructors and everybody's going to judge you on, and it has to be perfect, and it's this impossibly hard thing, and you're just this incredibly gifted musician. That's not what it is. The people that I found that really excelled at Musicians Institute weren't always the most gifted musicians. They were the ones that could be good enough, you know, good enough so that week in, week out, they could learn new parts, not miss the hits and tunes in a bunch of different genres with people they've never played before in a high pressure environment for 2 straight years. Those people came out and they're working. The ones that got out in time, or that were just really exceptionally special, because the internet kind of changed these things. One thing that before I ran on too much, one thing I will say along this note is that screwing up is good. Train wrecking in front of your audience, in front of your friends, in front of your peers, people that you look up to, makes you better. It makes you better if you get up and you do it again. Because here's what I found. I found that when I went to GIT, and I knew this, but it's much different when you go and you see incredibly great players, and their work ethic. Um, but I knew that I didn't have the best ear. I knew that I grew up with a guitar instructor that didn't teach me theory. Um, but I also knew that I had chops, and I could hang as long as no one said, "Hey, let's practice this Lydian thing and that and some words." I mean, literally, I didn't know what that stuff made, what that stuff meant, which is odd because now I teach it. But that's life, right? You get here and you get there. What I'm saying is that there were people in there that were like unbelievable musicians. I mean, these are people that you could work all day, the rest of your life, and I mean, they just have a gift that you can't fabricate gifts. There's a lot of people with gifts that don't put in the work, and you can get pretty much at the same level as someone if you work your whole life, but you don't have that gift where it's special and unique. This place was filled with special and unique people that had gifts, but they train wrecked all the damn time. And that was really comforting, because when it happens to you, you're you know, you're devastated, but then you get back up because you see these other people that you look up to get back up and keep fighting and get back up. I mean, you'll see these jazz guys that can play circles around you, and you put them in a rock scenario, and they got nothing to say. And you get people that can play rock and country blues all the time, and you give them something with more than 3 chords, and they got nothing to say, right? People that people that can't read a lick at all, but can listen to music and learn it and make it come to life. And you get people that can read like crazy, can't learn by ear, vice versa, right? And so when you're just given the record and you're given the charts, and you got to play with all these different types of people, and some of them can communicate on a high level, both verbally and musically, and some of them can't. Just going through that, I think is unique to GIT. I really embraced it. I really loved it. It was very hard for me, but I'm very proud of the work that I put in there. And I know that even though the jobs on the other side aren't there like they were pre YouTube and iTunes, like that's not debatable. But the experience you get there, I'm sure, is the same. And I know the instructors are still first class, best of the best. And I would highly encourage all of you to consider it if you really want to go through the fire and see how good you are. And you might come out the other side saying, maybe I'm not as good as I think I was, but I'm a hell of a lot better than I was. And there aren't that many people that subject themselves to that type of fire. So anyway, that's my take on GIT. I loved it. And again, if you want to check out that video I did with Rick and Rhett, please go over to Rick's channel. I'll put a link in this after the live is done. Watch it, leave a comment, and just let me know in general what you think, whether you think that's true or not. That that you would agree or that you disagree. That subjecting yourself to that constant, it's great, I'm terrible, it's great, I'm terrible, it's great, I'm terrible, and being around other people doing the same thing ultimately lands you in a place better than if you didn't go through that. I'm very much of that opinion. So I've been talking a long time. So if anybody has any comments on it or questions, I will very much take them for a few minutes, and I'll just kind of play until I see something. By the way, this is the new 2019 PRS Paul's guitar, the SE, that PRS is letting me borrow. And if you haven't seen it, I did a first notes video on this one. You can go on my channel and link back and check it out. But this for $1,000, this is a damn nice guitar. Mostly in my opinion, because the bridge and how heavy it is, it just sustains. I really like this thing. All right, I see a question here. How do you prepare legato playing? Well, so how do I answer that one? All right, so there's two parts to this. One is the actual piece. What are you playing? Or what scales you playing? Obviously, legato lends itself to 3-note per string style stuff because legato fundamentally means you're letting each note ring out for as long as possible. So in other words, let's say your attack is here and the end of the note is here. Your next attack is going to be right on it, as opposed to staccato, which might just be a blip in the middle, and this might be space, right? So it's literally as long as possible until the next note rings out, as opposed to, right? The attack's the same. It's the duration of the note value with your fretting hand. So when you're preparing legato, basically, it's going to lend itself to 3-note per string stuff because every time you skip a string, you're going to lose the sustain of that string, right? You're going to have to re-attack and the vibration has to begin again. So it might be GAB right here that you're doing, but if you're doing legato stuff and you're hammering on, you want to do GAB there probably because the string vibrating, still vibrating, right? As opposed to still vibrating, gotta attack again on the next string. So it's minimal attacks. You want to keep the string vibrating throughout. And since we don't have hands that are 6, 12 frets long or whatever. Basically, three notes per strings are what you're going to do. So what you're going to practice is learning your scales. Start with your major scale, 3 note per string. So instead of doing like this, sorry. You would so you figure out where your 3 note per strings are, and then practice one pick, one stroke per string, right? So, right? And try hammer-ons and pull-offs. That type of thing. That's as far as what you play learning the scales. Once you get used to that and you've burned your muscle memory out on that and you're pretty heavy with that, and you feel like your fingers are strong, then it's just getting used to improvising and making stuff up within those shapes and constant hammer-ons and pull-offs with limited picking. It's just getting used to it. So you would just, literally start an exercise, burn yourself out just like you do when you go to the gym. You lift so you can't lift anymore with the scales. That's one half. The other half is, okay, put on a jam track, play with somebody, try to make music, but limit yourself to those legato shapes and try to improvise. Don't just go up and down. Just try to, if you're in G, try to something. Just get used to it. All right, I saw one more. Let's see. I did a Dorian video. I know the scale and can shred through it. My question is there sweet notes to pay attention to as the third and fifth to the major? Yes, of course. Dorian, I highly encourage you to watch this video because I don't want to make this the same video as that. But when people are always learning new scales, new sounds, it's always good to isolate what is different and why that difference exists. In other words, that one different note, what chord does that change? Because the chord that it changes means this note, this scale is only going to make sense over that chord or over a progression that includes that chord. Otherwise, you can imply Dorian, but the progression isn't asking you to say something about it. So, in Dorian, let's say I'm in A Dorian. That's your 2 chord. Dorian equals 2. Just remember that. Dorian is 2. So that means you're really in the key of G major. For those of you that don't know the Dorian scale, all 5 shapes or patterns, whatever, you're just playing G major, starting and ending on A. A is your focus. What does that give you? What does that give you in A minor that's different than your actual A minor Aeolian scale? Well, what you get is that F sharp. You get a major 6th as opposed to a minor 6th, which would be F. That's the difference. There is no other difference. It's an A minor, everything else, but except F, you get F sharp. That's a major 6th. It's a minor scale with a major 6th. So what's that mean? What's that mean? It means if you're an A minor and you go to your 4 chord, you would be D minor, right? But look at the 3rd. That's F. And what do we know our scale has? F sharp. So what's that mean? It means you have a progression that has A minor in it and D major. Now, you can look at that as a 2 to 5, which of course it is. You can look at it as a minor 1 to a major 4, which of course it is. You have a bunch of different options, but at its core, that's what you get. It's Dorian because A is your tonal center, right? It's a minor tonality. So you get an A minor chord or whatever key you're in. And then you have, an F sharp. So you have a D major chord. So your 4 chord, or however you want to look at it, is major. And so how you practice it, again, you give yourself a couple chords, you play over it, and you practice emphasizing that 3rd. When you get Now, you don't have to play just over the chord, but how you want to start practicing it is you sell the crap out of that F sharp whenever there's a D around. And it's that simple. So if you're got a very signature sound, right? See here? And that's it. So watch that video. I go a little more in depth. I see a couple more questions. I'm only going to stay on here another few minutes just because I hear my kids rustling around and I got to get my son off the bus in a minute. Let's see here. All right, I like this question. What do you think as a guitar player you have to know minimum as from an MI perspective? This is a good one, and I'm going to leave it here because I'm running short on time. MI, whether you agree with it or not. Actually, I just had this conversation with Rick Beato, and I know he's done videos on it. MI teaches the cage system. And the reason that they teach the cage system, the reason I teach the cage system, is not because the cage system is the best way to learn it. It's not because the cage system is the most advanced or even the most intuitive way to learn music, or playing guitar. Certainly not the most sophisticated. The reason that they teach it and the reason that I teach it to beginners is because it gets you playing harder things, different sounds than your ear is used to playing quicker and easier. The longer you play, you're going to grow out of the cage system. I mean, it's 5 boxes. Like, you're going to grow out of it. But when you're teaching somebody who's a beginner or an intermediate player, even if you're kind of an advanced player, but you're stuck in the same sound, like you only play blues, or you only play whatever it is that you do, and you're trying to find new stuff, the cage system is a very easy and effective way to get someone playing new stuff, new fingerings, new sounds quickly. And this ties back to the live playing workshops at GIT. If you have to learn songs each week in different genres with new people, along with a full course load and all the other stuff you got to do while you're in school, and you're probably gigging and taking private lessons, and you're learning a lot of this stuff by ear or with chord charts, like not like someone showing you, like you have basic chord charts and by ear, learning the cage system and learning how to take what you hear, see what it's on paper, break it down into 5 patterns, get the scales that go along with it, and be able to do that gig. That's why they do that. That's why I teach people that. Because you can, even if your goals are you just want to drink beer around the campfire with your buddies and have a good time, and you want to learn a new song, you don't have to have some ridiculously advanced, approach. You don't have to do the Berkeley method to learn to do that. The cage system gets you there and reaches your goals. And obviously, as a professional player, you're going to, realize the boundaries within those groups. And I've made a whole course on this. And the first thing that you start doing is breaking those shapes into smaller shapes called triads, and you'll be beginning to see the whole neck in triads, blah, 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 blah. But, if you were interested in that, you can go to my website and check out that course. But the point is, the cage system is taught at GIT. I teach it because it works the best and the quickest for the most people. It gets them to reach their immediate goals quicker and more effectively than any other method that I know of. And when you're learning something that's hard, that's a discipline, that requires work, getting people to goals quickly makes them stay longer, work longer, keep it in their hands more, which means they get better. Plain and simple. If you want to get in shape, you've got to get your ass to the gym, right? If every time you go to the gym, you're working out with someone who's like, this is the way you do it, and it's impossibly hard, you get super frustrated and you don't reach your goals. That's not what you do. You go more often for less time, do something simpler, reach small goals, and you get better over the life of your playing. Cage system is a building block, but I'm telling you, for most people, for them to reach their goals, to keep this thing in their hands, it's the best building block to start with. That's why I teach it. That's why GIT teaches it. And that's a great place to end this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any comments, please drop them in the comments below. Subscribe. I appreciate all your support. I sincerely do. And again, I want to say thank you to Rick Beato and Rex Shaw for having me a part of their discussion on things that pertain very much to this. And if you haven't seen that video, please go over to Rick's channel and check it out. All the best. See you in the next one.